about David Montgomery. So let's hear it. I know a lot of people they were wanting more, and I admit I wish he would have run the ball a lot more in that second half. But don't freak out. This isn't a time to panic and trade him away as if he's not potentially a running back one in fantasy football as he gets going. He's a rookie and was a victim of the flow of that game. What's up, James? So, 6 carries, 18 yards, not fantastic, but he did have one catch for 27 yards. He has potential, showed flashes of being what we all hope he could be, but on the regular, we need more carries, obviously. So, disappointing for sure. And Aaron Rodgers had 203 yards and one touchdown. Nothing amazing, but we knew that this was a tough matchup. It was tough to go into Chicago and drop more than that. Practically surprised me by even having the touchdown early on in the game. So, but I definitely contemplated sitting Rodgers for Rothy in a couple leagues, and I wish I had at this point, obviously. But it's hard to sit your studs, and I think it's real important. More times than not, you'll regret it. So, buy low time, big timer, I think it is. Based on the early reactions, people wanting to get rid of Montgomery right away, I am buying low, and I think it's a good buy low opportunity for everybody because people are just freaking out already after 1 week. Let me put the score up here. Green Bay 10. Chicago 3. So I'd love to hear your opinions on David Montgomery. I know some of you are going to have knee-jerk reactions, but I think it's time to buy. Should you take a lap for starting Monty today? No, you should not. That was a good start. Flow of game got the best of his stat line. But in time, this guy is going to be the monster that I think we've all been expecting him to become. So give him time before you start giving up on a guy. After 1 week, come on. 1 week, crazy flow of game. He looked good when he got the ball. Yes, Ian, he did. On one play, he broke like 4 tackles, and they're even talking about how he's just a tackle-breaking machine, even already in the NFL. So they just need to feed him the ball. You can't judge a guy off getting, 6 carries. You can worry about whether they're going to give him enough carries, sure, but don't worry about him when he had 6 carries. His one reception for 27 yards was pretty impressive. So everybody's going to freak out. Take advantage if you can. I know I will. I know I'm going to buy low every chance I can get. This is the best time. While everybody freaks out about something like this, all I see is the opportunity. Like, now is the time to go buy him in all the leagues I didn't get him in. And buy him lower, at a lower cost than before. And he was a 3rd, 4th round type guy to a lot of people. So maybe you can get him for a 5th or 6th round type value, which is super, super low risk. And I think all upside at that point. So while everybody freaks out about A-Rod, everybody freaks out about Aaron Jones, which I do have more worries about Aaron Jones than anybody we're talking about right now. While everybody freaks out about Davante Adams, it's time to go buy. It's time to go shopping and go purchase these guys on the cheap, because I think we're going to see them all bounce back in week 2. And let's even look at the schedule. Let's see who's playing who in week 2. So in week 2, the Packers are at home. The Packers are at home against Minnesota, but I think they'll have a lot more success passing the ball against the Vikings. So the Packers are actually at home for, I believe, 4 of the next 5 games. So the Packers are going to be in good position going into like week 6. And then Montgomery's playing. He's at Denver. I think they're gonna relook at some things and say we need to run the ball a ton. We're having success in the first half with David Montgomery, and then they went away from the run, and that's what got them in trouble. So I think they'll game plan around this and fix some things and give David Montgomery his 15 carries that he needs a game. Chad says, glad you got on. I need help with wide receiver. Who do I trade? Brown? Do I trade Brown for Gordon since I have Tyreek Hill as a wide receiver 1? Antonio Brown for Gordon? I probably would at this point, yeah. I know that's kind of crazy, but I don't know, man. Antonio Brown, if it's not one thing, it's another. And Josh Gordon still has low-end wide receiver 1 value, so why not take something that could even sniff or be near wide receiver 1 value? Go get Josh Gordon while you can for Antonio Brown. Would I buy Antonio Brown low? Not in every league, but in a couple, sure, I'd try it. But I'm buying low only, and I certainly wouldn't expect to be able to sell high at all. I bet you there's only 2 or 3 people in your league that will even entertain a trade for Antonio Brown. Most people in fantasy football are more conservative than dice rollers. There's usually 2 or 3 or 4 dice roller type drafters and traders in your league, maybe 2 to 3. And so no one's going to take the chance on Antonio Brown at this point. Cool, Chad. Trubisky looked awful tonight, says Big Timer. I wasn't high on him anyways. Smitty, can you talk again about how you go after players in trades in the past, making it look like you want one player? Okay, so the way you go after a player in a trade, the best way is to not ask for that player right away. You say, hey, Bob. Let's say Bob has Alvin Kamara. Let's say you want to go after David Montgomery. So he has Alvin Kamara, David Montgomery, Devonta Freeman, and Eckler, let's say. So even if Monty is his second-ranked running back, you go asking for Monty right now out of the gate. Hey, Bob, can I have David Montgomery? The first thing, there's only 2 scenarios here. Bob either is as good as you at fantasy football or better. Let's just call it as good. Or he's a lesser fantasy football player. So looking at those 2 scenarios, if you ask for David Montgomery right out of the gate without talking about any other player, and he's a lesser fantasy football player, the first and only thing that really happens in his mind is, what does he know that I don't know? I don't want to look like a fool. So if he's asking for him, he must know something, so I'm not going to do a trade. That's the Bob reaction. That's Bob's reaction if he's a lesser fantasy football player than you. If he considers himself as good as you, or he is, and you ask for David Montgomery, well, A, he knows what you know, that he still has a chance to be elite, and that people are going to come and try and buy low and lowball him. So it's going to aggravate him. And it's also just going to remind him of that and just say, you know what, I'm not going to trade him low. If you ask Bob and make it more of his idea, let's say he has some doubt about David Montgomery, but Bob's as good at fantasy football than you, you ask him about Kamara. You get him to admit that Kamara is a guy he doesn't want to trade that is ahead of Montgomery in his mind, and of course Kamara is. So, hey, what do you want for Kamara? He shoots you down, and in his mind he's confirming that Kamara is his number 1 player, the guy he doesn't want to trade. Then you go after Freeman, and at this point he's valuing Freeman probably higher than he was yesterday because he's worried about David Montgomery. So now you get him to confirm, oh yeah, Freeman, I'm not going to trade Freeman. Then if you were to say, well, what other running backs do you have? Even though you ask him, he volunteers the name to you, which is psychology 101 in terms of trading in fantasy football. And once he says Montgomery, you go, well, he looked awful tonight, Bob. I don't know that he's going to be the player that we think he's going to be. And so you're just kind of placating him there and just enter and open up trade talks there. That's the best way to go after a player. If you just say, even to a good fantasy football player, what do you want for David Montgomery? You're laying your cards out on the table and telegraphing your trade, much like an Eli Manning pass. So that's how I would approach a trade if I were you guys. Don't ask for the player right away. That's a ridiculous way to do it. Do you think what happened to Monty can happen to Damian Williams? I think Damian Williams, I'm more excited about him than most people. And I think that Damian Williams, it could be the reverse. Everybody's expecting one thing, and he ends up playing very well. Shady could have lots of carries and touches, Jake, but it could also go the other way. I think no matter what, Williams will be involved because he's been game planned in all offseason. They're not just going to replace him in plays that he's practiced and he's got down. There's no way LaShawn McCoy, even with his history with Andy Reid and his ability to pick up that system probably faster than anybody else they pick up off the street because he knows Andy Reid and Andy Reid type systems, LaShawn McCoy still can't. There's no way he could pick up that offense in time. There's just no way. And so that makes Damian Williams the de facto locked and loaded person they count on for complicated plays and all the things that they're going to run, the different schemes. So Damian Williams is locked into and protected in a certain amount of carries. And I think he delivers because he's never faltered since he's been a Kansas City Chief. When they've asked and called upon him to deliver, he's delivered. So should I start Winston or Newton? That's a toss-up. I probably would go Jameis Winston at this point because Newton's been banged up. But anything can happen with that. Unburger dropping the $20 super chat. Thank you, Unburger. You're always delivering, bro. And Unburger says, David Montgomery looked good with minimum touches. What do you think of Aaron Jones' performance tonight? Also won some money on Monkey Knife Fight tonight. Attaboy, Umberger. Did you use promo code Smitty or that URL that I gave you? Hopefully you did, because that'll tie you to me. And it's a pretty cool way to play fantasy football DFS, I think. It's kind of a new, interesting. They're like the new kid on the block, but they're real popular right now. People are using them left and right. So, and thanks again, Umberger, for the super chat. I appreciate it, man. If you have any questions, ask away. Umberger, your team. Post your team in here, your final team. I forget what you had, but post like your starters. Everybody would be anxious to see it, I think. I don't think Shady can handle too many carries. I still believe Damian is the clear-cut back to own that backfield. I do too, big-timer, and you might want to go trade for Damian. You might want to go trade for Monty. I think both those guys are pretty undervalued right now. Go trade for Melvin Gordon. I can't stress enough how important it is to go get Melvin Gordon right now in fantasy football because he can win you a league at that 6th-round value. There is no better buy right now, I think, in fantasy football than Melvin Gordon. Honestly, I think it's the easiest call to make. At 6th-round value, late 5th, go get him. He can win you a league. No question about it. Josh Gordon, Austin Eckler, or Damian Williams. And PPR, Gordon would be your safe call. Eckler would be your second safest call. And Damian Williams probably has the most risk, but the most upside. Because I don't know that LaShawn McCoy is ready. Thoughts on MVS tonight? He looked good. Allison isn't the receiver to own. But with this week, it's really hard to tell. And that defense is so good. You don't really know what's what. We got to wait a week. I think Allison has the rapport with Rodgers and had the momentum last year, but we'll see. Yeah, as for Aaron Jones. Sorry, Umberger, you asked a question. Let me put your super chat back up and answer your question here. Montgomery did look good, and I think you should buy low. So I've talked about that a ton, and I think you'd agree, Umberger, because you're saying he looked good. So I think if in leagues where we don't own Montgomery, we definitely want to attack him because he was going in the 3rd and 4th round. That means he's going to cost you 4th or 5th round value. That's not a risk at all. As far as Aaron Jones, I worried a lot about him, but I was interested in trading for him before this week, and I was definitely interested in drafting him at like the right price, which would have been late 4th round value. Nothing in the 3rd really toward the end of my drafting days in this last week. I've been straying away from him at 3rd round value, but only because he's failed us before, and you can't really judge him against that Chicago Bears defense, but at the same time, the way they used him concerns me. I think that are they really committed to making him? They talked about making using a running back by committee, and they really kind of showed they're going to do that. Now you could say the same thing about the Bears. You could say the same thing about David Montgomery, but I truly believe that David Montgomery is going to deliver and get used more and more and more. Whereas Aaron Jones, I'm on the fence about Umberger. I think he's worth trading for if people are panicking. See, that's what I was telling you guys earlier. Like, everybody else is freaking out. They're in freak out mode. I think part of it's because I play in so many leagues that I see opportunity at every turn. I don't look at the negative. When if Aaron Rodgers goes out next week and has a bad game against the Vikings, which is possible, I won't freak out in all the leagues where I own Aaron Jones. What I'm going to do is go buy Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry, Aaron Jones. Aaron Rodgers. What I'm going to do if Aaron Rodgers has a bad week next week is go buy him in the leagues where I don't own him because he'll be a low value. I don't sit there and think about how Montgomery failed me this week. I don't sit there and stress about it and worry about it and start feeling like poor me. I drafted a guy that failed me. I look at it, I evaluate it from afar, and I say, it's sound logic. It's good fantasy football analysis to say that this guy looked fantastic. They drafted him to be the starter. He probably will be the workhorse running back, even though they may divide some carries up. This guy is going to be a stud sooner than later. It's a sound breakdown of it. It's not me trying to stick to my guns. You guys, let me tell you one thing. I am not so biased that I just stick to my guns because I made a prediction. I do so many leagues that I look at it from a very, very far perspective where I'm not tied to any one of my teams. I do so many leagues, I'm not tied to any one player because I don't own that player in every single league. And I'll admit when I'm wrong. When I think I'm wrong, I'll admit it. If, like Daniel Jones, for example, Daniel Jones looks really, really good. And I admit I totally missed that one. I thought this guy was just an Eli Manning or a Manning family strong arm. Like, you're taking this guy as the Mannings do and enforce the guy that they like upon the Giants. That's what I thought was happening. And I didn't see this talent coming. But I like Daniel Jones a lot. Does Waller automatically get tight end one target shares now? He could. Jeremy, I ain't mad at you, Smitty. For Montgomery, I hope not, because that would be really, really early to give up on him. Really early. Henry, I still have 4 more drafts to go. 4 more drafts, damn. Did I talk about Brown yet? No, I haven't talked about Brown yet. Let me make sure I haven't missed anything. Umberger, if you got more questions, please ask me because you have super chatted and you are in front of the line, Umberger. So anything else you have, I'm throwing it on screen. If I missed your question, let me know. Let me just scroll through, make sure I didn't miss Umberger. Umberger here. Aaron Jones' performance, what's your opinion? So I think I answered that good, Umberger, but if you want more detail, I can give it to you. But I think he looked okay, but he didn't blow me away. And what were his stats? Let's look at the stat line. I'm not excited. You can turn that light off. It's fine. Can you guys hear now? Sorry about that. Rewind. No audio. My bad. Looks crazy, man. Just read his lips. My bad. All right, hit me with some new questions. I need to take a lap for that. Hit me with some new questions. If I missed your question up top, post it again and I'll answer it. So sorry about that. Next up, Umberger. I'm back. Post your team, Umberger. I do need to. I promise I will take a lap for that. I'll do it tomorrow or the next day. Lap will be taken. That's my fault. I need to take a lap. We got sound. I hit the button. Thoughts on Waller? Bench Rodgers for Murray. That could work out for you. Bears D made a lot of good running backs look pedestrian last year. No need to panic. I agree with that. Jimmy Graham did look good. Chicago defense. Week 1 bus. Wow, Dak, Lamar. Expectations for Miles Sanders. Not super high yet, but by midseason maybe he takes over. But that coaching staff in Philly usually does not go with one running back. So AB owners need to target players like Montgomery because they're also doubted. You could go after a T.Y. Hilton because he's also doubted. I don't know that you can go after a guy that's like expected to go crazy. Go after someone's down on, or somebody like Montgomery who's already played bad. If you have to get through this week and somebody doesn't play well, like let's say, I don't know if you would take a gamble on a Devin Singletary. I might if I owned Antonio Brown, just to get out of that risk and to get into something that could become something great. That's not a bad option. Thoughts on Jacobs now that AB is out? I don't know that helps him, man. I don't know that when you take away a star player from a team that it helps another player. I just think it makes that team a lesser, well-oiled machine. And then they just stack the box against the rookie. That's not going to be fun. You think Bell has a big game against the Bills? I think he could do okay. I'm excited to see Bell play. Montgomery's catch was nice. He looked fantastic. It was just the coaching staff didn't utilize him right. And flow of game, passing a lot means that Cohen's going to be involved because they trust him. But Cohen could fumble that away, or we don't just assume that Montgomery's not going to be used in passing situations. They're getting his feet wet. That reception's going to make them, on film, they're going to be like, look, this guy is ready for more. He's a rookie. And we knew they could ease him in maybe in this game, so I own Singletary and David Montgomery. Good job, Russell. I think you'll be fine. Not to mention a lot of you got Montgomery at third and fourth value. You're gonna get return on your investment. Don't worry. Beckham, Adams, AJ Green, Curtis, Samuel. Jeremy with the super chat. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Umberger. Thank you, Jeremy. Jeremy's saying PPR behind with Monty, start Eckler or Kupp. That's a tough one. I'm not a huge Kupp fan, but I can at least be honest and say that there could be potential there for him to deliver what Eckler could deliver, but I think I'd bank on Eckler. I think he'll get starter touches or somewhat of a starter workload, even though he could share carries a little bit. But if you're a Kupp believer, know that I'm not, and I would trust your gut on that. Or if anybody else has an opinion on Kupp and Eckler, drop a line here for Jeremy so he can get a feel for what you guys are thinking as well, not just what I think. You're worried about Mark Ingram. I think Mark Ingram has the potential to surprise some people this year, and you probably paid a pretty low price tag considering his upside. So while I'm not going to say he's a lock, I think he's a decent bet. Yeah, Monty does face Denver in week 2. A-Rob looking pretty good. He did, I admit. A-Rob and Jeffrey are kind of those guys you wonder if they're going to return to form. Do I flex Singletary this weekend? Depends on your options, Corey. Big timer. I've had a feeling about A-Rob. A-Rob had a nice game. Might be time to consider him a good wide receiver too, at least for now. Smitty, what do you think of Julio saying he doesn't know if he will play? I worry about Julio every year because of that foot, and so this doesn't make me feel any better. Umberger says Mahomes or Lamar Jackson. I can't. Umberger has, I think, a get out of take a lap free card, and he probably has like I'd say I'd given him a stack about that big. So Umberger, I can't make you take a lap for that. But Mahomes by a mile. In fact, I think I have to take a lap when Umberger says something that I think is lap worthy. I'm forced to take the lap for him. Speak your mind, man. Start Rodgers and Adams tonight. Feels bad. I'd start Rodgers and Adams. I'd do it again even with the same matchup, guys. I mean, you're going to miss some. And for every time you bench them, you're going to regret it. Yeah, Rodgers did feed MVS a good amount of targets. It was pretty nice to see. We'll see if Allison, if they rotate, how that goes. Thoughts on Odell Beckham Jr. being... Odell's going to be fine. I think Odell's going to have a big, big, big year. Nagy, seriously, Montgomery, yeah. It was disappointing they didn't give him more carries in the second half. I'm not going to lie. I was pretty bummed watching it. Start your starters. I agree, Waller. I always start my studs. There's going to be that time where, yeah, Rodgers doesn't deliver, or Adams doesn't deliver, or Montgomery doesn't deliver. And I do consider him a running back that could have elite potential. May not be week 2 even. Maybe it's week 5 he starts getting going. I don't know. But I do know he has the talent, and if they feed him, and I think they will feed him once they see him deliver, when they give him the ball, he does deliver. And that one catch for 27 yards proves he can pull in passes, and I think they start leaning on him more. It was week 1 for a rookie running back. Teams don't always feed a rookie running back 25 carries, guys. Especially when there are options that they trust in Cohen. They're going to ease Montgomery in. Almost bench Rodgers for Winston. Yeah, I mean, if it makes you feel better, I would have started Rodgers. I would have looked at it and contemplated it, but I believe starting your studs is going to burn you less than if you try and get cute and bench a guy and then boom, you lose sleep when you bench a stud and he goes off and you're like, what the hell was I thinking? What do I think? Who do I think is the top scorer week 1 overall? Mahomes. Trubisky ignored Monty in the flat half a dozen times. What to trade for Antonio Brown? What to trade for him? Start offering your worst players and see what happens. I don't know that I'd give up a ton, honestly. I'd more so let's see if we can pull up some names. I'll give you guys a list of guys I would trade away to get Antonio. Because I would trade for him in 1 or 2 leagues for sure. Not in every league. I don't want the headache. If I could buy him low in every league, I guess I'd buy anybody if it was like dirt cheap prices. But I'd say I consider trading like a Alshon Jeffrey, an MVS. I don't know if you could get Antonio Brown that cheap, but I would try right now. I know you guys, would you rather have Robbie Anderson or Antonio Brown at this point? We haven't seen Robbie Anderson play. He's been banged up. That might be something I'd entertain. Antonio Brown has as much of a likelihood of not playing at all this year and at some point returning to like top 6 wide receiver status. He has like the same odds, I think, of being either. I'd trade like a Ronald Jones, a Royce Freeman, a Kenyon Drake, a Tevin Coleman, because I think he's on the decline. I'd trade a Matt Breida, I think, for Antonio Brown. So that should give you guys an example of a risk. It's still a risk. Anderson, what leagues play? I think I'd still take AB over Robbie Anderson just in a couple leagues. Derrick Henry or Dede, that could be close in the end, but I think I'd probably roll with Henry. Darren Waller or Jordan Reed. Probably Waller at this point. It was a punt fest, Jacob. Do you think Watson could be the highest scoring player this week? He could. Watson could be at any week. He could have a 5 TD. I think out of all the QBs, Watson's one of them. Mahomes and Watson are probably the two that I think could have the most 5 TD performances. Will Graham be a TD or bust this season? Yeah, I think he's a TD dependent guy. I took a chance and benched Rodgers this week. I'm rolling with Cousins at home. That was a bold move, big timer, but it could work out for sure. Bryce Love for AB. Yeah, I'd do that. You'd like Robbie over AB. God, AB, I mean, do you guys think, this is my theory, I think that Antonio Brown has a mental, like I'm being completely serious, has some kind of concern that something's not right up there. And is it ironic that he's been wearing the same helmet since he was in Pop Warner, modifying that thing, and the league is refusing to let him play with that helmet. So out of all players, you're thinking, okay, if his helmet hasn't been passing the standard or doesn't pass the standard, is he taking hits that he shouldn't be taking? Like, this is crazy that he's tied to this helmet that the league is saying is unsafe, and yet he's acting crazier than we've ever seen him act. There might be something to this that comes out later that he's struggling with something. And we've seen this happen before where these hits over the years, CTE, they take their toll and they make you act a little bit different, and then you get worse and worse or whatever. It definitely feels like CTE to me or something, because he's acting completely irrational. And it's strange. It's almost like it's just odd. Everything he's doing is very odd. It doesn't even make sense. Burning his feet the way he did, or freezing him. Yeah. And just the way he talks and the way he communicates, it's very different than I think he used to be. I think anybody close to him, once we hear a report from somebody close to him that says, hey, something's wrong, he's off his rocker, then we're going to start knowing that there's something really wrong with him. When was that IMAX, that concussion you're talking about? But it doesn't even need to be a concussion. It could be the abuse he's been taking to the head because of his Pop Warner helmet. I mean, it's not funny. I just mean this Pop. How do you I would love to know how you modify a Pop Warner helmet into a professional helmet. What do you cut it into sections and add pieces to it? How do you? It had to have been at some point this small. It's like taking one of those little tiny helmets and saying, I'm going to make this into my NFL helmet. And then slowly over time, you think AB will retire? He could. I love AB. I hope he doesn't have CTE, but that would be very sad. Yeah, it would be sad. It's not funny. I'm laughing about the size of that helmet. How do you get that helmet to become a professional helmet? It makes no sense to me. I know a Pop Warner helmet's not that small, but it's crazy. But it would be sad. It's so sad that any of these players have something like that, and they're taking hits for us, the fans. I know they're doing it for themselves too, for the money and all that, but it is very, very sad. And I hope it's something that he can overcome, and it's not something that like CT where he's going to have issues and get worse or whatever. But he's acting absolutely out of his mind right now. It's the only thing that makes sense to me. I don't know if you guys all feel that way, but there's something wrong with him. I think it's a cry for help. Maybe he just doesn't want to play anymore. Could be. He's always been a little weird. Any chance Hunter being a better pickup than Waller. Could be. Week 17 in 2016, Tyler. That's when he had his last concussion. I'm not sure if that sounds like it could be right. He made a deal with the devil. No, he didn't. Happa. That hit was brutal. You know who also had a brutal hit, wasn't it? Was it what? McCoy's had a few, hasn't he? LaShawn McCoy. Didn't he have the one that was almost like career-ending? Devin Singletary for Aaron Jones. I would take Aaron Jones, or I would take God. Aaron Jones is worth more, but I feel of a weird feeling Devin Singletary will be really, really, really good. So, I don't know. It's sad to see people laugh at AB having... Yeah, I don't think anybody's laughing at him having... Well, maybe I missed a comment. I certainly would not laugh at him having anything like that. That's not... I was merely laughing at his helmet. But maybe it's not CTE. Maybe it's just his personality. I don't know. I'd love to hear somebody close to him like say, hey, you know, this is how he's been his entire life. Then we could have more of an opinion, I think, on his antics versus now I think we don't really know what's causing it. So I'm kind of with everybody here that's thinking like before we start digging into him over and over more and more, I feel like we need to wait and see if that is something that he's struggling with. And I think if we're going to find out about it, it's going to be soon. Because this will probably shed some light on it. More people will talk about it. And then if he ends up like needing help or something, we're going to know soon. And then everybody can stop making fun of him and start like hoping that he gets better or that we shed more light on the topic in general. And the NFL's been trying to look out for him by making him use a proper helmet. So the NFL's trying to help him. But I would think they would have tested him. Does anybody know if they do tests with players in the middle of their careers for that CT? Is there a way to play your starters and don't get cute? That's what I've learned tonight, Jeremy said. What's Westbrook's matchup? Dede? Week 1. Dede's at home against the Chiefs. AB trade Pats. That would be interesting. The Patriots would be the team to go get him. Or the Ravens. Anthony Miller came up empty in his lone target. Taylor Gabriel had like 3 big plays, like pretty much all of them pretty much called back. I think that they can't test CTE until you're dead. That might be right, Umberger. But there's got to be like signs of it where they can pretty much pinpoint that you might have it. I would think there's some patterns there. Geronimo Allison wasn't targeted in Green Bay's Week 1 win over the Bears. That was super disappointing. Not even targeted. I started him, I think, in 2 leagues, and pretty bummed that Geronimo Allison didn't get a target. But that's what a Bears defensive matchup can do. You just got to be prepared for it. The Bears are tough, man. Montgomery needs more touches, I agree. You had Cohen. Jamal Williams. And Davante Adams, 4 catches for 36 yards. That was brutal, too. Cohen had the game-high 8 grabs for 49 yards, so Cohen had a big night. Yeah, Wes, they can't be sure about CTE until they cut your brain open, but they can do some, like, CAT scans or whatever. I don't know. My running backs are Kamara, Elliott, White, Harris, Henderson, Samuels in an auction. Nice job. A damn good running back crew. Hit that thumbs up on your way in if you could, people. We have like 100 and something people in the room pretty much and only 21 thumbs up. Please help the channel. Let people know we're live. YouTube will do that if you hit the thumbs up for me. If you don't hit the thumbs up, YouTube may not tell as many people that might be looking for this kind of content. So it's a big thing for me and the channel to get those thumbs up. It's not just me wanting to see the number for my own good. It drives traffic to the live. The more thumbs up, the more people are watching. It's going to get you guys more because I'm going to do more shows. I'm going to do longer shows. I'm going to do it more often. I'm going to build the brand up for you. So you guys are in charge of the growth, and you've done a great job so far, clearly. We've grown so fast. Thank you. Flooding in. The thumbs up are flooding in. AB wore a fur coat to the game. I knew something was wrong. MVS had most receiving yards. No. Let's see. MVS stats. He did. He had 52 yards on 4 catches. Jimmy Graham had the only touchdown. 3 catches for 30 yards. Not bad. Yeah, something's wrong with AB. I hope it's not something like that, like CTE or something, and people are, making fun of him constantly. And, and I've done my share of joking around about him. And if I knew something like that was going on, I would scale back my memes. But Umberger again. Umberger is unbelievable. Umberger is unbelievable. My spidey sense says Deebo Samuel is going to be a stud this year. I hope he gets targets this weekend. Is he worth a stash? So you've seen Umberger, probably a lot of my Deebo stuff, I imagine. If you haven't, he's on my bold predictions list. He's on the missed the cut list. But he is, I think, number 13 or 14, so he just missed the cut. But I think I moved him up. I'll have to see if I moved him up back into the 12 range. But I really think that in Dynasty, he is going to be the next Anquan Bolden meets Steve Smith kind of player. So I'm super, super high on Debo. Super high. And I think in redraft, so for this year, I think he probably will take a little time getting going because Pettis is the number 1. But Hurd's hurt, so they might shove Debo right in there. But yes, Umberger, I am 100% in agreement. We're in lockstep on this one. I just don't know when it'll happen. But Debo, he looks like an unbelievable talent, just waiting to explode. And he looks ready now. He looks quick. He works super hard. He's one of the hardest working rookie wide receivers I've seen. And I really, 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 really believe that you're going to be right on this. And I've been preaching it for a little bit too, so. Umberger dropping 20s he's making it rain. AB is just a spoiled brat, says Jake. He could be. I'm hoping that's what it is. Best thing I saw tonight, Mahomes. Who are you calling kid? Yeah, he is a kid. What's Mahomes, 22 years old? I'm going to feel old when Mahomes is old. I'll tell you that right now. I remember when Tiger was young. And now that Tiger is so old, it makes me feel really old. When Biebs is old, we're all going to feel old. He's getting older, but when Biebs is what's up, New Zealand? But yes, Umberger, I agree. Thank you again, Umberger. Umberger is one of my number 1 advertisers. Umberger, if you need me to advertise your business or whatever you do, I'd be glad to. Austin Eckler or Devonta Freeman this week. That's a tough one. I feel like at this point we got to just, whatever we pick coming out of this Bears game, we do the opposite, right, guys? I'm kind of feeling Devonta Freeman, but he could get phased out of a game plan too, because they're an aerial attack this year. They're going to throw more than they used to. I'll just say I'm around 40 big timer. I'm on the approach. I'm on the approach. I am planning a trip your way. Should I trade? Carry on. Tough one, Landon. Love your work, bro. Think outside the box, man. Thanks, I appreciate it. Twitter is roasting the Bears hardcore. Do you go full PPR or half? I like full. I like full PPR. It's all what you're used to, though. It's all what you're used to. How does Nagy not see Montgomery's talent? I don't know what their game plan was. Crazy. Big timer 30, nice. But when Biebs gets old and Mahomes gets old, I'm going to feel really old. Okay, I made a trade AB for Hilton. Good. Hilton's a lot safer. Nice move. I don't know how you pulled that off, honestly, but that's a good example. We said Hilton was one of them, and you got it. It's a pretty fantastic move. Out of these, which would you start in PPR? 1 point, Diggs, Lockett, DD, or Godwin? Out of these three, which one? Godwin. I think I start Godwin. Diggs is kind of hurt right now, so Godwin. Do the Jaguars hold Tyreek Hill in check? No. You easily could be in your 20s, youthful, game strong. Thank you. Appreciate it. Doing my best. I know this sounds weird, but I think it's you get to our age, big timer, and you're like, I think I need to start moisturizing. Need to keep the face thin. It's a weird day when you actually say to somebody, I think I need to moisturize. Smitty, would you really trade AB? No, I would trade Love for AB. No, I sent a trade, sorry. Albert Wilson or James Washington. Sorry if I got the Love for AB trade wrong. How are you feeling about DJ Moore this week? I like Samuel a little better, but until we see, I mean, this is all speculation, all offseason. We don't know who's going to be the number one there. Samuel's been getting rave reviews, and then he could vanish. But I kind of like Samuel better, but we'll see. 30s, a bunch of youngsters. I don't know, once you start approaching 40, you start feeling like it's very different than being early 30s. Do I start looking to trade Josh Jacobs or keep him a few weeks? If you can get like another player that is also very undervalued that you do think will do well. So like a Hilton, I'd trade Jacobs for a Hilton. So Smitty, Nagy was terrible tonight. He was. Daniel says, I'm so pissed about Montgomery. Don't lose the faith in the guy. Is it possible that they misuse him all year? Sure. But I don't think that will be the case. Michael says, I woke up one day and saw my dad's face in the reflection. Moisturize and sunblock. Yes, moisturize. In my 40s, says IMAX. Yeah. Well, when I started in fantasy football back in 2004, and I started off on NBC Sports Radio and CBS Sports Radio, doing the bold predictions with the show that you guys see on Wednesday nights, the same show. So I've been on that show for 16 straight years. But in 2004 was my first year. I was kind of the young buck in the fantasy industry. I was the Biebs. You guys can just call me Biebs. It's fine. I was the real Slim Shady when he was coming up. I get called Slim Shady a lot. I guess we look kind of alike. I guess he's my long lost brother. But back when Slim Shady was young, back in 2004, I was the young buck playing with all the late 30s, and some of them were early 40s in the industry. You know, before Instagram Tweety birds came out. Like now you have every 17, 16-year-old Instagrammer saying, I'm an expert. And a lot of YouTube channels just pop up. No one has any credentials of being an expert. No one's been on the radio. No one's done any fantasy football analyst. They just say, I'm an expert. And then so be it. It is. They're an expert. But when I started in the industry, I was like this, young buck. And it just like that. Just like that, you grow old right in front of everybody. What do you think about O-Gun, as we call him? I think he should be grabbed. I don't know how long it'll take him to get a shot, but once he gets a shot, he could maybe not let go of it. So, and that's not that hard of a running back stable to climb through and climb on top of. So, O-Gun might be a guy we're trying to pronounce later. Ogunbalawala is what I call him. Can't believe how little use Montgomery had. He was the only back that showed any promise. I agree. It was ridiculous. Flo took him out. I don't know. I'm not saying that the bad coaching didn't recognize that the flow needed to run him regardless of the flow of the game. But the flow of the game definitely hurt him because they were trying to score a touchdown and pass the ball. And that kept Cohen in there. And we need Montgomery to gain the trust of the coaching staff in the receiving game in case that stuff happens. But I do think the Bears will win a lot of games. And with their defense, especially if they're up by 7 points because of their defense and they just run. So don't think that we can't see the flip side of this in a couple weeks, or even next week, to where they're up by 7 or 10 and their defense is just shutting people down and they keep running the ball over and over. And then Montgomery might have that big monster game. So once Montgomery punches a touchdown in, we're all going to be we're going to be breathing with ease, okay? And just trade for him in leagues where he's being super undervalued right now. He's already undervalued. Anybody that owns Montgomery paid probably third round value at the highest. Some of us might have reached for him, but give him time. Lockett or Dede? I go Dede, but you wouldn't be crazy to go Lockett, but I go Dede. Cowboys defense? Oh, man. I'm tired. I go Browns defense if they're available, but Cowboys D's good. A lot of people like him this year. You're not alone. Do I drop Larry Fitzgerald or take a flyer on O-Gun? I take a flyer on O-Gun if you can afford to drop Fitz and you don't need him. You don't envision using him really. Like he's a backup in case something happens, then drop him and take a gamble. Why not? Cool backstory, Smitty, for real. Happy for you. So, yeah, a lot of people think I'm like new to the industry. My total backstory is I started a site and did my thing for about, I don't know, I want to say 7 years or something, and then I was acquired. My site, my services, everything, my social handles, everything. Looking back, I wouldn't have done it in retrospect, but my dream was to always be writing full-time for a company like CBS Sports and the company that acquired me was smaller. They were fantasy football starters. They were a big fantasy football site and business, but they were still like a lot, they were a privately owned and run company. And so they acquired me and I got paid a salary from them to write for like about 2.5, 3 years. But I didn't get to create everything myself. We're using their tools. They consumed my site and my site just went away. They didn't use my tools that I had built and had, I invented the trade calculator in 2004. I invented there are people that were toying around with ideas. They didn't work, though. They weren't functional. They weren't front-facing instant tools. They were like downloadable, like almost like programs through, so they download and run on your computer. They weren't like web-based instant stuff. So I created the first trade calculator in 2004, created what I believed to be that I could find. I'm sure people were toying with it. But I had a developer make the first mock draft simulator that was really out there. So it was a mock draft simulator. It'd go based off my rankings, and it would have a randomization to it to a degree, so that you wouldn't always have the same mock draft over and over. And we actually did mock drafts in 2006, 7, and had a mock draft tool like where you could all join chat. It was really awesome and legit. And so, but again, I got acquired by this site that I wrote for 3 years, and then from that point, after I was acquired and I worked for them for 3 years, I just missed having my own thing. I missed having my own brand. I missed controlling everything. There is risk when you do something for yourself and you're not getting paid full time. You have to come up with every dollar, that you need to spend. You don't just wait for a check from somebody and they take care of the bills. You actually have to worry, But it was worth it to me to get back to doing what I loved. I loved that I could change my logo at any moment. I could move everything around. I could redesign my site at any moment. And sleeperu.com right here is the baby brand, my brand that I've had for 4 or 5 years since I left that partnership. And so this is me. This is all me, Sleeper U. I came out with the Fantasy Football Show. I'd owned the domain name and used it, to try and market some of Sleeper U, but I decided that I wanted to get into video for the first time. I had done podcasting and obviously radio. Umburger again. Unburgers. Unburgerleavable. Who's your top starting lineup fantasy team since you begun fantasy? 1 QB, 2 wide receiver, 2 running back, and 1 flex and defense. Umburger, who's your top starting lineup? Are you asking what my best team is now, or what my best team I've ever had, or if I was just choosing players for a daily fantasy or something? Clarify what you want, and I will deliver. Umburger. Started Aaron Rodgers tonight because I was busy and forgot to make the adjustment. Don't stress over it. I started Aaron Rodgers in a lot of leagues. I'm not overreacting either about Aaron, says Danny. Coleman or Breda at this point. Broncos, Seahawks, Cowboys this week. Cowboys defense. Singletary or Gore? Singletary by a lot, in my opinion. But hey, I said David Montgomery by a lot on a lot of things this week, and that didn't work out. So trust your gut over anything, because anything can happen. And even a so-called expert is only going to get, let's say you guys toss me question after question after question for 5 hours straight. Any expert, the best expert in the whole entire fantasy football planet, is only going to get that 70% of those questions right, So don't think that just because I say something that it's locked and loaded. Trust your gut, use what I'm saying. If it jives with your thinking, it can kind of confirm your thinking. But if you think something entirely different than what I say, trust your gut over mine. Just use me as a guide, honestly. Umburger said, Peyton Manning, Ladanian history. Amongst the years, I'd say I don't remember the exact teams, because I've played for so long. I don't know that I could recall any one team that I've ever had, other than the Dynasty League that I currently have right now. And let me show you that. And you tell me if this is the best team I've ever assembled just by by seeing it. And you can say, Smitty, I can tell you right now without looking at your other teams. Let me pull it up, Umburger. I'll show you the team that I'm most proud of and that I have dynasty-wise. And you tell me if you like it, okay? You ready for this, Umburger? Are you ready? This is a money expert league. A money league. So I that's one reason why I love this team so much, is because there's money involved. But it's also an expert league. So it makes it even doubly fun to have, I believe, one of the best teams I've ever assembled. And I have no wide receivers in this league, so this is my team. Actually, I can just plug in. Let me do that. I'll show you some of my teams. How's that? Let's go team shopping. You ready, Umberger? You ready, Umberger? Okay. Here's my team, Umberger. You tell me. You tell me, Umberger. So you can see my checked players. I have Deshaun Watson, Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, and Christian McCaffrey. Whoa. My wide receivers are bad, but what do you expect? Honestly. So Goodwin, Jacoby Myers I'm starting. Tell me if you think I should start somebody else. I liked Robert Foster a lot until Robert Foster all of a sudden just fell out of good graces with his coaching staff. I don't know what the hell happened there. Sanu. Those are awful wide receivers. Yeah, Happa, they are. But that's the price you pay when you slowly acquire Barkley, Kamara, McCaffrey, and Watson. So, but I love this team. I absolutely love this team. I think that it's going to be really hard for people to beat me. I won last year, but I didn't have. I had Gurley, and I traded him for Kamara straight up before I started my right when I started my no Todd Gurley campaign in January. I got rid of Gurley for Kamara, and so that was a great swap. And then I had Barkley and I had Watson, but I had Damian and who were my running backs? I forget. I made a trade to acquire McCaffrey. So, what do you guys think of that team? Drop Allison for Higgins? I don't know. You could do that. I wouldn't call you crazy, but. So, what do you guys think of this team? Grade my team. Says big timer Rodgers, Kamara, Montgomery, Allen, Galladay, Westbrook. I like it. Yeah, that's a good team. You'll be fine. Trade Breda on the high. I would definitely trade Breda high. Don't trade Rodgers. What do you guys think of this? Barkley, Kamara, McCaffrey. I think it's fantastic. I don't know what to do with wide receiver. And honestly, I've been blacklisted in terms of trading. Nobody will trade with me. Once you trade and you acquire enough players, people stop trading with you, and it really sucks. So literally, I've tried for about a year and a half to get a receiver, and I can't. Nobody will accept a trade. I've even offered people amazing trade offers that I'm overpaying, and they refuse to trade with me. I got really lucky acquiring Christian McCaffrey in the trade that I did. I forget what I gave. I gave up like Damian Williams, Phillip Lindsay, and another really good player, but I wanted to trade into something because I needed to do something because I had no wide receivers. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to beef up my running backs. Ask it again, Russell. You could have put yourself in a wide receiver with those running. No, I can't because I've tried to trade for a wide receiver for over almost 2 years, and no one will trade with me anymore because I've acquired these big names and no one wants to trade with me. I don't know why. But anyways, that's one of my favorite teams, and I won it last year, and so let me find some other teams for you. This is probably one of my better teams. This is a big expert league, probably one of the biggest ones, if not the biggest one that I play in. And I actually missed setting. This is one of those leagues where you have to set your lineup. It doesn't automatically So I actually didn't start Davante Adams this week because I play in so many leagues. I assumed that the lineup was set, but he didn't even do well, so it might end up being my advantage. But I have Baker Mayfield, I have Dalvin Cook, Zeke Elliott, and yeah, so Elliott, Cook, Baker. Then I have Adams, Odell, and Kittle. This is probably one of my best teams, and this is in a big time. Look, you have Fantasy Sharks, footballguys.com, Dynasty League Football, Doctor Football, Fantasy Sharks, and that's Tony Holm, the owner of Fantasy Sharks. So he's the top dog at Fantasy Sharks. Roto Professor. We've had a couple of people replaced. Draft Buddy. So it's a pretty big league, and I think that's a darn good team. Baker, and it's a 3-person keeper league. But yeah, Cook, Elliott, Adams, Odell, and Kittle, freaking fantastic. And then so everybody you draft, you keep the player for 2 rounds before their draft, and then every year it's 2 more rounds. Or no, it's 1 round. So it's 2 rounds, and it's 1 round every year, I believe. So my picks that I made this year, so Kittle's a keeper because of last year in round 10. So next year he'll be around 9. Or maybe it might be 2 rounds. I forget. It could be round 8 next year. But I believe it's 1 round. Round 9, I drafted Debo at 11, which was high, but I wanted to get him. Keyshawn in 14, so that means he'd be a 12th round keeper. Mecole Hardman would be a 10th. Odell is a first rounder, so I can't keep him. Adams was a keeper from the 14th round like 2 years ago, I guess. So Adams has lost 2 rounds every year, but he was like a 14th rounder like 2 years ago. So through keepers, Chad, I had Adams, and then Baker. I drafted Baker last year in the 18th round, so I kept him at 16. So my keeper this year was Baker, who I drafted last year in the 18th round, kept him for 16th. Cook I took in the first round. Elliott I took in the first round. I traded up to get those 2 first-round picks too. I traded my second and my 4th rounder. See, I've done the draft pick trading techniques for you guys, and I practice what I preach. I traded my 2nd rounder, and I did the kick the can process where you trade a 2nd and a 4th rounder for like a top 4 pick, and you create a void, right? You moved your 2nd rounder into the 1st, so you're not missing a 2nd rounder. It's just moved up, but you've literally gotten rid of your 4th rounder, and you created a hole. Then you trade your so my 2nd and 4th. So I traded my 3rd and my 5th for a 2nd rounder, or no, another 1st. I traded my 3rd and my 5th for another 1st. See Odell. Odell was my first that I was dealt out of the hat. So I traded for a 2nd rounder. Where is that at? Oh no, I traded for Kittle, I think. I forget. But through keepers is how I got this. Keeper league. You only keep 3 players though, and you lose 2 rounds each year. So this is probably one of my best teams. What about Umberger? You like that? How did you pull that team off? So that's one of my favorite teams. This is a team I'm going to battle in this year. I think I'm going to have a good chance to win that. And if we go to the homepage of this, I haven't won it the last couple years, but because I had some injuries. But you'll see here, I won it in 2016. I won it in 2011 when I had Draft Calc. That was my first, or one of my first sites. And then 2010, it was under Fantasy Football Extreme. So you see Smitty. So under 2010, you can see Smitty. 2011, you can see Smitty. And then 2016, you can see my name there. So I've won this 3 years out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The last 9 years, I've won it 3 years. FF Today used to be in it. FF Today won a lot. FF Toolbox, Fantasy Football Toolbox, was in it. It's pretty big. Probably one of my biggest, if not the biggest. I don't know why Alex, he didn't get any targets. It's crazy. So, yeah, I hope to win this league again, get another championship on here because this is a damn good one to win for props and all that. Let's look at my other teams. Let's see how I did in this league. So Brady, Rodgers. It's not a 2 QB league. I just drafted Brady in the 11th. You can see the round I drafted him. So I took Melvin Gordon. This is we drafted really early. So Melvin Gordon every week has become less valuable. At this point, there was still not a ton of. There's a lot of hope that he return. So I did draft him really high. So David Montgomery. And Melvin Gordon. So this is one of those teams where I got burned taking him a little high. I don't know what happened to Montgomery. They just didn't give him the touches. So I got Tyreek Hill. I have Odell Beckham Jr., Boyd, Greg Olsen, and there's no kicker in this one. And then Rodgers. So even with me taking a hit on that Melvin Gordon draft selection, which I did really early on, I still have a really good team, I think, given that I have Odell, Tyreek Hill, Rodgers, and Monty. And I believe in Monty, so I'm not freaking out about Monty. Everybody else is freaking out about Monty, but I'm not. And let me show you. I get a lot of people that say that I never show people my leagues or my winning, and I just kind of ignore those people. All the haters of like, hey, show me your championships, me. Well, I just showed you that one league where I've won it 4 times, and that's one league, so it happens. Oh, I think I got a super chat. Oh, that was Umburgers. Umburger, did I answer your question? This is what you wanted to see, right? My best teams. This is my other team. So Watson, took him in the 5th. You can see that right on the screen there on the right side. Dalvin Cook, took him at 2.01. Melvin Gordon, 3.12. This is also an earlier draft, so it was early on. Didn't know that Melvin Gordon was going to take it the distance yet. I drafted Melvin Gordon in a lot of leagues, but I'm kind of happy about it. David Montgomery, again in this. So you guys are seeing me draft David Montgomery in a lot of leagues, so I have faith. So Dalvin Cook, David Montgomery, and Melvin Gordon with Watson. And with this, I have Mike Thomas, that last wide receiver there, and then some pretty thin wide receiver action right there. But that's a Smitty-like team right there. This is one that a lot of people wouldn't like, but this is the kind of team that where I pop with a Singletary, Jalen Samuels, Madison, Hilliard and Hunt, Darrell Henderson. One of those guys. See, I stock up on almost every team I have. This is the kind of running back stable that I end up accumulating. And when you accumulate a running back stable like this, and one of them pops into a top 12 overall talent, then you trade that player for whatever you want, or you start them. And that's why I win a lot of leagues, is because of that depth. And if Melvin Gordon comes back, I'm going to win like a lot of leagues, because I have been like, I don't know, I'd say 8 or 9 out of my like 14 leagues. You think Umberger was asking about a dream team, a fantasy lineup, but all the NFL players ever. Oh, was he? I wanted you to put together a dream fantasy team. Okay, I'm sorry, Umberger. Damn, Umberger's asking me a question and I'm answering the wrong freaking thing. Dream team. Let's think about this. Best running back ever. In fantasy, I'd say Priest Holmes and LaDainian Tomlinson. Give me those two as my running backs if I was going to put two together. It's a good question, Umberger. Kurt Warner in his prime at QB, or Patty Mahomes. If I could only pick one, I might take Patty Mahomes this year, or Kurt Warner in his heyday. Peyton Manning too, but I think I'm going to go Patty Mahomes. I think Patty Mahomes is going to be the best of them all. My wide receivers would be, if I had to choose two in a flex, I think you said, Randy Moss in New England when he had his 20 whatever TDs that he had. Yeah, LT and Priest Holmes, man. And I played since 1993. So I'm not one of those people that didn't get to see some of these people like Jerry Rice and all that. I did. I played fantasy football with Jerry Rice in his prime. I played fantasy football with Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin when they were balling. I watched. So Jerry Rice was already playing, but I watched, LT get drafted and all those guys and come in and out. Megatron, yeah, Megatron. I remember drafting Megatron. I remember drafting Megatron in a draft when I was in a Safeway parking lot, and I was getting in my car and making the pick traded for him. Sorry, I traded for him in a Safeway parking lot, getting into a car, and I remember right now, like I can remember being on the left side of my car. Your mind can work like that. You can just remember where exactly you were. And I remember I hadn't got in the car yet, and I made the trade, and then got in my car, and I was excited when I closed the door. Like, I can remember that right now. Megatron. I remember in 1993 doing rankings, like when I was working, like in a corner inside a closet. And I remember I sat down, and this is before, obviously, I started fantasy football as a business in 2004. So 1993, 93, 94, I was a young guy. And I was a young kid, and I was just sitting in high school, and I was working though, and I was sitting in like a closet at my place of employment, and I just got a pad of paper out, and I just wrote rankings down. I just did top 20 quarterbacks, and this was like March or something. And I'm like, okay, and so I do the top 20 quarterbacks, and I do the top 20 running backs, and then I go, okay. And about an hour later, I go back into the closet. I'm like, let's do it again. And I just do the rankings over and over. And that's honestly, if you want to know the origin of sleeperu.com and all of my brand and everything, which I've done for 16 years, the origin of that was in a closet doing my rankings because no one else was producing the content. I had to produce it myself for myself on a pad of paper because no one was giving me rankings in March, and it frustrated me. It made me angry. It made me angry that nobody was talking about drafting. My buddies didn't want to draft in March. I did. The Super Bowl happened, and I'm like, let's draft right now. I don't even want to wait till August. Let's draft our teams right now. And there was no dynasty really back then. I want to draft right now for August here in March. And my friends were like, you're crazy. You're crazy. You're out of your mind. And so that's the origins of what got me to thinking that there needs to be something out there, and there wasn't dynasty content. And I believe I provide more dynasty content than really any. And you'll see that, especially now that the season is going, I'm going to start cranking out redraft and dynasty content together as we head into the remainder of the season. So if you like dynasty, if you've missed dynasty, I'm going to get into a lot of dynasty. Yeah, I used to write it down on a piece of paper, and I remember it would have Marshall Faulk, Terry, who are some of the running backs? Ernest Biner, Jerry Rice, Troy Aikman was wasn't a great QB, but he was a QB then. Jim Kelly. Like, those were on my rankings when I was doing that. Like, Jim Kelly, Michael Irvin, and then a little later, like, Ed McCaffrey. Like, I'm just trying to remember names that I remember ranking and stuff like that. Sleeper U is mine. So I don't know if you're thinking of Sleeper, the app, the draft app. That is a different. I've been around longer than them though, but there's Sleeper app that you draft on, and that's not me. I'm Sleeper U. SleeperU.com. That is me, and yes, I own that, and I own the Fantasy Football Show. Smitty, someone just sent me a Monty for Henderson trade offer, but I have round 9 keeper value for Hendy. Monty is a third. I'm torn. I think you need to keep Monty, man. Don't trade Montgomery right now. Ernest Biner, yeah. Dan Marino, he was there. Dan Marino was on my paper in the closet. Curtis Martin. I want to say Curtis Martin even came along after that, but he might have been on the paper as a guy that I didn't play fantasy football and he was drafted. Most of the guys that I mentioned were like drafted on my watch of being a fantasy football player, but Martin might have been in the league before the 1993 when I started. Gaming saying, so are we ready to say that it looks like MVS is the number 2? I don't know that we can say that yet, but I think we're starting to lean that way. But Allison looked so good last year before he got hurt. I'm a little torn. I'm thinking MVS feels a little bit better than Allison at this point, but we've seen one game against a very hard defense that might have focused on shutting him down because he didn't even get targeted. Barry Sanders was definitely on that list. You have Henderson. I take Monty over Henderson, but I love both. I want to own both. I feel like you got to own both. Um, 95. Yeah, so Martin got drafted in 95. That's why I wasn't sure on Curtis Martin because I felt like he wasn't there when I got into fantasy football. It was Aikman. I believe Emmett was there. Aikman, Emmett, Irvin, Jerry Rice. God, who was another wide receiver? And it was Tecmo Bowl. Tecmo Bowl, like, year 1 was when I started playing fantasy football. So that had to have been 93, 92, 94. Tecmo Bowl is right about that. Because I remember what I'd do is we would draft our teams. Because I convinced everybody eventually to do drafts, but they didn't want to do our draft for August. They wanted to do a draft where we would draft teams and then we simulate the Tecmo Bowl season and see who won the fantasy season. So we were doing simulation fantasy sports before anybody doing that. So we'd all draft our teams. I'd be like, I'll take Emmett, I'll take Barry Sanders, I'll take whatever. And then we get our teams together, then we simulate the season, and then we get a calculator out, and we literally calculate what the total and we played 17 weeks back then. Torrey Holt, yeah. But I think he might have been after I started playing. And then we calculate with a calculator the week 17 totals, and then we'd see who won the fantasy league, and we put like $5 or $10 in, and then the winner would take the pot, and then we'd do another season, Spent all day doing multiple seasons of simulating Tecmo Bowl with a fantasy team that we drafted. I'm hitting that 40-year mark. Sean. Isaac Bruce, yeah. Bruce was awesome. It could hurt Allison that he's only in the slot, and then the situation can dictate that he's not getting the ball. You know what I mean? So, all right, guys, I'm gonna call it a night tonight. If you don't know, Sunday morning I'm gonna go live. Here about an hour before kickoff, so make sure you have please hit subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell. Turn on your notifications. I'm not just saying that. I know you hear a lot of channels do that, say turn on your notifications. There's a reason. I'm going to be going live on Sunday mornings, and you're going to want to be alerted to that so you can jump on, do some start bench questions with me. I appreciate all of you. Please hit the thumbs up on the way out, and then when the video is processed on YouTube, which it will right after we disconnect and I click finish here, the comments will be completely blank. So that's your chance to ask me a question and not have it be drowned out right away. And then I'll try and get back to you and answer those. So please comment, please like. Umberger, you're the man. Everybody else that super chatted as well, I appreciate you. Let's see, let me try and call out some names. Well deserved. Thank you again, Umberger. Umberger is like my big advertiser. He's my big client. Umberger, one. What did we call you, Umberger? Thank you, Jeremy. Jeremy, super chatted. Who else super chatted? If I'm forgetting one of you, I'm sorry. All right, guys. I wanted to get on and talk. I knew a lot of you were freaking out about Monty. I know a lot of you were freaking about Aaron Rodgers and A-Rod and everybody. So I wanted to get on and address that. But we'll be fine. Keep the face. Keep the faith. Keep the face. Yeah, take it easy, guys. Appreciate all you.